I'm Mike DeLuca. Welcome to this rare In the Trenches look at the craft of screenwriting. Today I'm sitting here with Jim Uhls, whose adaptation of Chuck Palahniuk's controversial novel Fight Club resulted in a modern masterpiece of the film. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
Now, you've written in numerous formats. You've written plays, essays, TV scripts, articles. What is it about screenwriting that you feel is the best format for your ideas?
Money.
Did that come first? Did the other things grow out of?
No, I did the other things first.
Okay. How did those things bring you to screenwriting?
Well, playwriting primarily brought me to screenwriting. But I think that no matter what you're writing, it's an article, a poem, the basic challenge is the same, which is to take a set of raw ideas, raw materials, and form them into some kind of polished piece.
When did you first feel like you had what it takes to be a screenwriter? Did you have a specific moment where you felt the confidence of, I can do this?
It was when the analytical side and the intuitive side merged together, worked together as a creative unit. I had already had that happen with playwriting, but with screenwriting starting out, it is a very specific structure that has to be learned, and I think anyone probably is going to be overly analytical when they start.
Now, to learn that structure, did you get it from school, or did you learn it from reading other screenplays, or both?
Well, both in my case. Of course, in studying playwriting originally, reading all the classics, modern plays, I think reading screenplays, as many as you can, is the best.
Do you remember the ones that influenced you the most, that were favorites of yours in terms of boning up on the structure?
Not really. It was like, I just felt like the exposure to constantly reading that format created not only an analytical understanding of it, but an absorption of what it was intuitively.
Do you, in terms of your own process, do you outline before you sit down to write a full-blown script, or how important is like the beating the story out?
I despise outlines.
Despise it?
Yeah, despise it. I think outline is shooting your wad before you wrote your script, and I think then you slavishly work to serve your outline as your main objective, whether you're even consciously deciding that or not.
Right.
And so your intuitive side shuts down.
So that's interesting. So you think it might lock you into an approach that could
very
inhibit creativity?
Analytical, oh, that scene did what that needed to do right then, I've taken care of that, and then you read the finished script and it's very bland.
What does your general process look like? You sit down to start a new project or a new script. What goes on before, during, and after?
Well, I don't do outlines, but I do notes. I do a lot of notes. It's more like stream of consciousness. It might be about the characters. Sometimes I interview the characters on paper with me being the interviewer.
Oh, great.
And have them respond, and as I start pissing them off, they start to reveal their true selves, and it becomes a process of making them three-dimensional.
So there's a lot of noise going on in your room with your company.
It's silent. It's totally silent. But
we hope.
It's in my mind.
Right. How hard is it to not have every character sound like the author or your voice? Does it take a lot of effort to write different characters in completely different voices? Or is that something that comes easy to you?
I think if you do this practice of the character interview, you sort of get that. In fact, I sometimes find that sometimes if there's two leads or a major supporting role, I've bled over some syntax, and I can catch that early and start developing a different voice for each one.
Fight Club is probably one of the most iconoclastic adaptations of a modern novel in recent film history. It's obviously had a life after its initial release. It's become so many people's favorite movie.
It was in galleys. It wasn't on shelves. And somebody a producer who was never going to do it, just sent it over and said, this has been passed on by every studio in town, but I think you'll like it, and I'm not going to do it.
Right. What an endorsement.
But she said, I think somebody might. So I read it, and I was just like, wow, this would be just fun to work on. And then I found out eventually that two producers were on it, Josh Donnan and Ross Bell, with their Atman Entertainment. And I started basically campaigning for it with Ross Bell, who was more or less running point on it. And then I think at that point there was no director on it. And it was Fox 2000, and they were still sort of slowly maybe making a deal with the author. And Laura Ziskin, who ran at the time, said, we'll hire the writer after we've hired the director, who will come on, of course, as a development deal. Right. And they got David Fincher to be really interested and made a deal with him. Then we had to have a big lunch with Laura, and Kevin McCormick was with her at the time. And what I recalled was I never pitched. I never actually pitched anything. I just made everybody continue to talk like this. And I made sure I was sitting next to Fincher at the lunch. And we're all just talking about it and talking about it. And then we all get up and Laura says, you know, well, we'll be starting your deal today. And Kevin McCormick says, as he's passing by me, says, you know, you never said what your take was on this. I said, well, no, I think we're all sort of getting the idea. Right.
Now, did you go into that get together with that goal in mind that you were going to try to avoid the traditional, here's my take?
I thought it would be more constructive, and it turned out it was more constructive. They had all read a spec of mine called Hard Hearts, which is really a gritty, dark-edged comedy about a man and a woman. So David thought it was a really good screenplay.
What were the challenges in taking it from the book to the screen?
Well, any novel has the advantage of being able to describe both external behavior and internal behavior, as well as any exposition that can be ladled on. Screenplays don't have that luxury at all. It's watching external behavior. So even if you're faithful to a novel and a scene feels like it's faithful to a novel, if it works on screen, you have made changes to it because you are not using an internal narrative to describe the interior process. Now, that's violated sometimes because sometimes there's massive narrations with exposition and where we were and what I'm thinking, and we used voiceover really for an ironic commentary as sparingly as possible.
I was going to say the voiceover in that film isn't explanatory about an interior monologue at all. It's ironic commentary.
It's not helpful to the audience. It's just there to be something that's almost contrary to what's going on in screen.
Did you use that as a tool to establish tone and attitude of the film?
Yes, absolutely. The thing that comes down with adaptations is you have to work as hard as you do on an original script, because at the end of the day, what people want that you're turning it into is a workable screenplay. If you turn into a producer, or director, or studio executive an ungodly mess that's really faithful to the novel, you're going to be replaced by another writer. So the objective is a workable script.
Now, did you seek out input from Chuck, or did you guys talk through the process?
Chuck became a very good friend of ours. Came down a lot. What was great, though, is we would ask him, why did you do this in the book? And he would just stare at us blankly and say, I have no idea. Which is actually good, because what he did was his own intuitive riff on the internal mind of a person who's going insane, and made it a great novel. So we would get essences of ideas from him, and then we would layer in internal logic in a way that would make it play on screen.
What was it like stepping on the set and seeing what you had pictured in your head, kind of being, shot by a director like David and being acted by Edward Norton and Brad Pitt? Was it close to what you had in your mind?
Yeah, it was really, that was one of the most uplifting things. Is first of all, I already thought the casting was that, so I was already thinking that way, and then seeing them on the set and seeing how Brad Pitt was so much like Tyler Durden, and Edward Norton walks around looking like he thinks that about the world all the time. So it was perfect.